Good afternoon. I'm meteorologist Bailey Braun, and as we look ahead this week, brace for more of these cold temperatures continuing on all the way into Thursday and Friday. We also have some active weather heading into southeast, so I'll tell you everything that you can expect for this work week. But of course, I wanted to start off and show you your sunlight data for tomorrow morning. Sunrise in Anchorage around 7:56 in the morning. For Fairbanks, not too much before that at 7:55. For Juneau, 6:49, and in Utqiagvik up north, 8:53 is your sunrise for tomorrow. So get ready for more of that sunlight continuing on as we head into the summer months. But for that wind chill for today, temperatures feeling a lot colder in Anchorage at 0 degrees, and up into Dead Horse and the North Slope feeling more like negative 21 degrees. But of course, that's really not too far off from what those temperatures truly are. Winds are dying down across the state, but they will begin to pick back up for the Aleutians and also for southeast Alaska as this week continues. So brace for more of those kind of conditions. But across Anchorage, I just wanted to show you that almanac for today. These are those high temperatures from today and these overnight lows for tomorrow. So that high temperature for today, 9 degrees, and both our high and our low is 21 degrees below normal, so it's feeling extra chilly. But all the way into Fairbanks, we're seeing a similar trend with these cold temperatures, and you know that very well. These last few days have felt pretty chilly, but these temperatures, highs are about 33 degrees below normal, and those lows for tonight are going to reach 29 degrees below normal. So brace for more cold air moving through this week. The coldest night is going to be tonight with those lows reaching near 40 degrees below zero. But the coldest day for you this week is going to be on Monday. So prep for Monday to be the coldest day and then gradually starting to warm up little by little as the week progresses. Now I wanted to show you our snowfall records from yesterday. Juneau, you are just breaking record after record with that snowfall. So 9.6 inches were recorded yesterday after lots of that heavy snowfall through the weekend, and that surpassed that previous record set back in 1965 for 3.3 inches of snow. So the bar was fairly low with this one, starting out at 3.3 inches, so wasn't too hard to beat, but you did get a plentiful amount of that snowfall, and that's only going to continue as we move into the rest of this week. You do have more snow heading your way, but before you do get more of that snow, I wanted to give you a look as to how this season is comparing to others in the previous years. So far, this is the 5th snowiest season so far to date, with 135.2 inches of that total snowfall, which is 60.2 inches more than normal for this time of year, and that's 92.7 inches more than what we got last year. And for February, 31.1 inches of snow were recorded throughout this past month. Normally, we only get about 16.7 inches, so that's a 14.4 difference, which is fairly significant, over a foot of snow more than normal. So it's pretty significant, and like I said, you're about to get even more of that snow moving into this week. Today is actually the first day of meteorological spring, and of course we're only about 2 to 3 weeks away from our actual spring kicking off on March 20th. So brace for that, but in the meantime we still have a fair share of winter weather moving through the state, whether that's those cold temperatures lingering all the way from western Alaska all the way to the interior and even in south central, or if it's that actual winter precipitation pushing into areas like southeast Alaska. These areas highlighted with that winter weather advisory and this winter storm warning, those will expire for Monday morning, but what's highlighted in blue is that winter storm watch, and this is going to be in effect up until Tuesday night, and this is going to be for about 6 to 12 inches of snow likely. But for Juneau and areas like Petersburg, you could expect up to 8 to 13 inches of snow. That's going to make landfall Monday, but the heaviest amounts are going to roll through Monday night all the way into Tuesday night. So Tuesday is going to be a pretty snowy day for you. Monday is going to be as well, but it really kicks off in the overnight hours. Now, as we look ahead all across the state, I wanted to just take a minute and show you, mostly focusing on Juneau and southeast for this forecast. And of course, we'll get to our interview coming up in a few minutes, but I wanted to show you that cold air is lingering across the state. The main headline for most of the state is just sunny skies continuing all the way through this week with more of those cold temperatures, and that's what you can expect. And the only change is coming for southeast with more of that active weather on the way. We're going to catch a little bit of a break from this snow into Monday afternoon, but it's going to pick right back up into the later portions of the evening. And you're also going to stay fairly dry in areas like Haines and Skagway, even into Yakutat. You're staying a little bit out of the way for Monday at least, but that's going to pick right back up for Tuesday. So get ready for more of that snow heading your way. Monday night into Tuesday morning, that's when more of that rain hits into areas like Ketchikan. So brace for some heavy rainfall moving in for the next couple of days. This whole week is going to be fairly eventful in terms of what kind of weather you're getting. So it's going to be rain and more of that snow. But for areas like Juneau, again, lots of snow heading your way, up to 8 to 13 inches. And it looks like there's another branch of another storm moving in by Wednesday. But of course, we're only focusing on this right now because that's what's going to move in by Monday. Now, as we look at our snow model trends, by the time Monday at noon rolls around, so about lunchtime, you can expect between 2 inches to up to 6.5-ish inches. That's what you're expecting to get. But then again, it really begins to kick off by the time Tuesday rolls around. Tuesday morning, that's when totals really start to pick up, and then that's when that snow's really going to start coming down. So by the end of Tuesday afternoon, that's when you could reach up to as little as 7 inches, and up to our GFS model in yellow is showing about 20 inches, but it's probably going to be a little bit closer to 12 to 13 inches. And of course, we'll keep you updated as those snow totals begin to become clearer as this data begins to come out each passing day. Now for Southeast, again, brace for more of that wet weather heading your way in areas like Sitka, even down to Ketchikan. That's where more of that rain is hitting, with high temperatures reaching above freezing, even those lows sitting above that 32-degree mark. But for areas like Petersburg, that's where it's going to become a little bit more of a mixture. But Juneau, lots of snow heading your way again. So you already got done with shoveling from this weekend, but it's time to pick up that shovel again and get to work by tomorrow and into Tuesday night. Temperatures are going to be pretty cold this week, really starting off the week frigid, but then you're going to warm up just a little bit as the week progresses, especially as that storm begins to pass through. But for areas like Yakutat and Skagway, even into Haines, that's where you're staying a little bit out of the way, at least for Monday. That storm will reach into these areas by the time that Monday night and Tuesday hit. Now for the interior, again, cold temperatures and sunny skies. Temperatures are going to cool overnight to nearly 40 degrees below zero, so it's going to be a cold night for Fairbanks, but high temperatures are gradually going to start to warm as the week progresses. But when I say warm, I'm not saying they're going to be back to normal. I'm saying they're at least going to be maybe 1 to 3 degrees warmer each day. So it will begin to add up, especially by the time Thursday and Friday roll around. That's when temperatures will start to get at least a little bit closer to normal. But up into the North Slope, we're seeing a little bit of a clear up in those skies, mostly cloudy skies from the weekend, turning into these partly cloudy skies, especially for Utqiagvik. High temperatures reaching -8 degrees into Utqiagvik for Monday, and then as low as -21 degrees below in areas like Anaktuvik. There's still a little bit of snow dwindling in Dead Horse, and that's going to continue into tomorrow, but it's going to be very, very light, mostly just flurries sticking around. For western Alaska, mostly sunny skies, cold temperatures underway, and that trend is continuing on for pretty much every region in the state. More cold temperatures, and these temperatures are sitting between 15 and 25 degrees below normal, and that will continue on throughout this week. Again, I just wanted to let you know this week is going to be cold just like it was last week, so don't get your hopes up yet. We're still a few weeks away from spring, and it is really feeling like it. Those weeks are still feeling very, very far away. But across the Aleutian chain, mostly cloudy skies as you approach into Unalaska, but then begins to clear up as you make your way up the Alaska Peninsula, all the way into Dillingham. We have a little bit of snow likely for Adak and even areas like Atka. That's mostly going to be for the morning hours, but wind gusts will pick up across the region to about 30 miles per hour. So brace for some gusting winds, but otherwise temperatures not too far off from normal, but still about 5 to 10 degrees away from that mark. For areas like South Central, mostly sunny skies underway. Kodiak, you're the only exception to this. Everywhere across the region, we're seeing mostly sunshine, but Kodiak, you're going to see some of those scattered snow showers with that high temperature really close to that freezing point at 31 degrees. But winds are going to pick up into areas like Seward and also into areas like the Copper River Basin, where gusts could reach up to 25 and 35 miles per hour. Temperatures are beginning to climb, but slowly but surely we'll get back to normal before we know it. into areas like Matsu. Mostly clear skies, but again, the reason why we're having such cold temperatures overnight is because you get that radiational cooling, and with skies completely clear, there's no clouds or anything to retain any heat that you collect from the day. So overnight lows really getting frigid, 20 below into areas like Willow. And for Anchorage, overnight lows tonight at -5 degrees. High temperatures tomorrow not quite making it out of single digits, but you will by the time that Tuesday rolls around. And like I mentioned, I said those temperatures really aren't putting in too much effort to try to get back to normal, and you can see that they are slowly warming, but it's really hard to tell. It's staying fairly close to the same temperature each passing day, but by the time that Thursday and Friday roll around, that's when we do begin the noticeable climb, and then by Friday and Saturday, temperatures will be much, much closer to normal than they have been the last week. And by the time these temperatures roll around, it'll have been about 2 weeks since we felt these normal temperatures. So we do have a chance of snow on Friday. Right now it's not looking like a whole lot, just about an inch or two, but of course still pretty far out, so we'll keep you updated with any other snow totals that are on the way. But for areas like Fairbanks, mostly sunny skies passing through. This is true for western Alaska too. Your 7-day looks very similar to this, mostly sunny skies all the way into Thursday and Friday. Now a few clouds may pick up as the week progresses, but still, though it's mostly sunshine heading your way, temperatures will begin to climb just a little bit more. You might have a small dip in those temperatures overnight for Tuesday and Wednesday night, but then back up into closer to 20 degrees below zero by the time Friday night and the weekend roll around. And for Juneau, of course, you've been the main headline all weekend, and you're still going to brace for more of that snowfall. I showed you it's been a pretty significant season in terms of the snowfall, and you've got even more heading your way. Monday you will get some snow throughout the day, but it will really pick up into the overnight hours, and especially Tuesday morning, so prepare for more of that heavy snow underway. It could linger all the way into Wednesday with a little bit more storms passing through all the way this week. So it's just going to be lots and lots of stormy weather, so please be prepared and please be aware that that snow is heading your way. Now for areas a little bit more south of Juneau into areas like Ketchikan and Sitka, this is where that's mostly going to be rainfall and a little bit of that freezing rain mixture, so just be prepared. Of course, lots of snow, and season's almost over. The spring is almost here, so keep your hopes up high before then. But we are going to head to a commercial break really fast, and when we come back, I will show you that full interview with Dr. Micah Hahn, where she talks about how the environment affects our health, especially here in Alaska. Do you mind just kind of telling me about your background and what led you to UAA?
Sure. So I'm an environmental epidemiologist, and we can talk a little bit about what that means. But my background is in public health and in research, and specifically looking at the health impacts of climate change in Alaska. And I came up to Alaska in 2017 with my now husband, who was just interested in being a commercial fisherman. And so that was sort of part of what led us up to Alaska. But I had visited before and loved my time here. And this seemed like a great place to start my career as a researcher.
That's awesome. And what have you learned, and also what's really interesting about the Alaska climate and how exactly does it affect health, especially since we have such a wide range of temperatures
Totally.
and, active weather, that kind of thing?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, well, one of the really interesting and sort of reasons why this type of work is so important is because climate change is happening so fast in Alaska. I mean, we're kind of the front lines in terms of seeing a lot of the impacts much more acutely than in the lower 48, for example. And just like you said, Alaska is huge. I mean, as Alaskans know, we're the size of the contiguous United States. And so when you start thinking about the impacts of climate change and how that's affecting people, I always, when I'm giving lectures, I talk about, well, that'd be like talking about what's happening in Florida versus Minnesota versus Texas versus California. Obviously, these impacts are really different. In northern Alaska, some of the major impacts are changes to sea ice and thinking about how that affects people's access to marine mammals that are important for nutrition and culture. Um, Whereas in interior Alaska, I mean, wildfires are sort of front and center, and we see those impacts season after season. Obviously, in Western Alaska, the recent typhoons are on everybody's radar. In Anchorage, we think a lot about winter weather and our rain on snow events when we have lots of snow and then it turns into rain and then it's icy everywhere and what that means for um, transportation safety and avalanches. And Southeast Alaska has seen crazy winter impacts this year also. They got dumped on with snow and then followed by an atmospheric river that really caused a lot of issues for roofs and for boats and for people in that region. So it really depends on where you are in the state in terms of how it might be impacting you.
And we mentioned those physical impacts, especially how it's going to impact your day or even where you live. How exactly does all this weather kind of impact your internal health?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, some of the work that I've done up here has been around wildfires and wildfire smoke specifically. So, for example, we know that wildfire smoke is linked to respiratory health. Obviously, people with asthma feel a lot of effects, or people with heart conditions can see an increased risk of those things when it's really smoky out. Similarly, I've looked at extreme heat. So maybe people remember 2019 was a summer when it was really hot across a lot of the state. And so we saw an increase in admissions to emergency departments for people with things like, heat exhaustion, heat illness, but also heart, cardiovascular, and respiratory or lung issues. So those are some of the really direct impacts. We know that climate change is impacting our wild food resources in lots of different ways, right? We see changes in salmon runs and migrations of caribou and moose, and those are really important for nutrition. Obviously, it's an important protein source in a lot of rural Alaska, but also in urban Alaska. And so those impacts on nutrition, but also it's an important part of like being an Alaskan, right? And teaching traditions to your kids and grandkids. And if you can't harvest salmon, that's something that is part of your identity. That is not something that you can pass on, which has lots of impacts on our sense of self and mental health and well-being. So those are just a few examples, but I'm sure we can come up with some others.
Oh yeah, I'm sure,
Yeah.
especially just how wide the range is just in terrain for Alaska and different kinds of temperatures. And speaking of what you just talked about with, in the summertime, you have a lot of visits to the hospital with all the
Yeah.
wildfire smoke. Is summertime the time when health concerns really start to spike, or is it more in the winter time?
Oh, that's a really great question. I've never thought about it like that. Um, I guess again, sort of following what we talked about earlier, it really depends on the where in Alaska you're talking about. I mean, the winter storm or fall storms in Western Alaska have really been the thing that are on a lot of people's radar. And so there, I would say maybe fall time, whereas sort of the shoulder seasons and thinking about sea ice as maybe a different time of year versus people in interior Alaska that are thinking about wildfires. Really, like the May to September is the time when they are probably experiencing the most impacts. Similarly for Anchorage, gosh, I would say, well, obviously in the summer when it was really hot, we were getting summer impacts, but then right now we're seeing sort of the winter time. So I guess it kind of depends. There's not sort of a one season when climate change is affecting health, but it kind of changes throughout the year.
Gotcha. This is a little off topic from the climate change health impact, but do you notice any difference for human health in general when it comes to those daylight hours in the wintertime when it's a
Hmm.
lot of darkness versus summer when it's just endless sunlight?
Yeah, that's another great question. Well, one thing that we have thought a little bit about in terms of extreme heat. So in the study that we did to understand sort of what is extreme heat affecting Alaskans, that was one thing that we wanted to know. And then if so, what temperatures were important? When we're thinking about setting, right now we don't really have, we've just started to issue heat warnings, but at the time when we were doing that study, one of the questions was, should we issue heat warnings? And if so, at what temperature threshold? So that's what the study was designed to do. And we found that we were seeing sort of a signal at emergency departments when the temperature was at about 70 degrees Fahrenheit, which is really cool compared to other parts of the United States. Like in Phoenix, 70 degrees would be like a normal, that's right now, that's kind of like a winter temperature for them. But so we were like, that's interesting. Why are we seeing such lower temperatures are affecting Alaskans? And I think one of the reasons has to do with daylight. So in the summertime, in places in the lower latitudes all day, and then as the sun goes down, your body kind of gets a reprieve from that hot summer temperature, and it gets a chance to basically restore and get ready for the next warm day. Whereas in Alaska, we don't really get that, right? It's warm and sunny all day. And that sun really builds up inside people's homes. Our houses are built to like take in the sun and keep it in. And with the sun angle, we accumulate lots of heat inside of our homes. So I do think that maybe the opposite of what you were thinking, like, oh, with low light, maybe we see like seasonal affective disorder or something in the wintertime, but actually with the high sun, that kind of makes our temperatures more extreme, even at a low degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh
If that
wow,
makes
that's
sense.
that's really interesting. That's so cool. And like you mentioned, the extreme heat is obviously a pretty big impact, especially whenever you get temperatures in the interior up to 80s
Hmm.
and 90s.
Hmm.
What do you think is more impactful to health? Would it be extreme cold up to, as low as
Hmm.
40 and 50 degrees below zero, or temperatures
Hmm.
up to 80 and 90 degrees in the summer?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. We have not done a study looking at the impacts of cold weather. Um, Certainly, I think people in Alaska are maybe more attuned to cold weather. Like we are a little more prepared for it in terms of, I mean, certainly we're seeing some like very, very cold temperatures that we haven't before or prolonged cold. Um, but you kind of know to avoid it maybe or to dress appropriately when you're going outside versus heat is something that most Alaskans probably haven't really experienced. And you kind of mentally we a lot of us spend a lot of time outside in the summertime and you're just busy doing all the things, camping and getting fish and getting all of your summer activities done that you often don't think about that exposure. Also, another group that we often think about, like occupational exposure in terms of things like road construction. Like we have one season when we do all of our construction, which is summertime, because that's when we need to get it done. And so folks are outside for a really long time, and maybe don't have the protection they need to be able to avoid both heat and wildfire smoke. So I guess to answer your question, in terms of the number of people affected, maybe some of the summertime issues are maybe have a larger population health impact than the cold winter temperatures.
Yeah.
Although certainly, yeah, our houseless population is affected on both ends of the spectrum. And so people without shelter kind of are vulnerable in multiple times of year.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think, are there any ways that Alaskans can prepare themselves ahead of time for the summer temperatures and, the endless daylight?
Yeah, totally. I mean, people remembering back to 2019 when it was hot, I'm guessing people remember going into the grocery store, into Costco and Fred Meyer's and seeing empty shelves where there should be fans and kiddie pools. And I remember looking for ice around July 4th or so, and like there was no ice anywhere. So just getting those things ahead of time, like having a fan so that you can regulate the temperature in your house is a something you can do. Certainly getting some kind of a box air conditioner or something if you live in a place where it's, particularly in interior Alaska where it gets really, really warm. And if you don't have that option, knowing where in the community you can go that does have temperature regulation. So maybe that's a movie theater or a mall or a community center or the library, just somewhere to go hang out during the hottest part of the day so that your body gets a chance to cool down.
Mhm. So kind of giving yourself a balance of if you're going to be outside a lot hiking and camping, just be sure to go do something fun inside at least once in a while.
Totally. Yeah.
Mhm.
Drinking lots of water, wearing white clothes, wearing hats, wearing
Mhm.
sunscreen, all the things that you think about when you go visit Arizona, for
Right.
example. But those are good practices even in Alaska. Even if you don't feel like you're that hot,
Mhm.
like trying to stay ahead of it is a good thing to do, especially for older folks or people that have other pre-existing, maybe you have a heart issue or something else.
Mhm.
You might be affected more or earlier than you think you might be, I guess.
Gotcha. And what research are you looking ahead for or ahead to for the summertime?
Well, one of the projects I'm working on right now has been really fun. It's part of our Alaska EPSCoR program, which is a National Science Foundation grant to increase STEM, so increase science, technology, engineering, and math outreach and participation by young people. And I'm doing a study right now in Southeast Alaska, looking at youth perspectives on wild foods and climate change, and like what they're seeing in their communities and what their concerns are, and their ideas for solutions. And it's been a really fun project, and I feel like youth don't always get a seat at the table, so it's been cool to kind of to try to elevate their voices and bring those back to the community.
That is super cool. Got to get the youth interested and
Oh,
invested
totally.
in things like
They
that.
are our key to to success in the future. So,
That's true. Well, are there any other really interesting aspects or just some cool things that you learned since moving up here, or things compared to the lower 48 that Alaska really stands out with?
oh, sure. Yeah. Oh, guys, everyone knows that Alaska is so different from the lower 48. I mean, I think something that's really apparent to me is that climate change, I feel like you don't really have to explain it to people here because it's really part of our everyday life. Like Alaskans are really in touch with what's going on outside and like, everyone's a lot of people are really outdoorsy or depend on resources from outside. And so um, it'd be very different if I was working in a big city in the lower 48 and trying to explain what I do. But here everyone's like, oh yeah, this is impacting me on a daily basis. I totally get the type of work that you're doing. So that's been a fun part of being in the community up here.